Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Felicia, and I was sadly 10 years late to the party, but I recently watched all of the Twilight movie series. And because I am 10 years late to the party, I don't know if anyone cares anymore, but I want to talk about it. So I'm gonna talk about it now. And I can't just stand here and talk, that feels kind of boring. And I'm in the mood for some cookies, so I'm gonna bake. So we're gonna talk about Twilight and bake today. So I watch the H3 podcast, and they watched Twilight and like reviewed it, and I got so interested. So I was like, I've never seen these, I have to see these. And I posted something about it, I think, on Instagram. Also, subtle plug, follow me on Instagram, Inga Felicia, on Insta as well. And then one of my best friends was like, oh my god, I want to see them too, we can see them together. So I was like, yes, of course, that would be awesome. Obviously, that would be way more fun to also have someone to talk about them with. So we decided that we were going to see all of them together. So let's see. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before that, we were supposed to go see a musical together. So then I went to her first, and we saw the first Twilight movie. And then this past weekend, she came home to me, and we saw the other four, like just straight through. And we're talking, I don't know exactly how long the movies are, but they're like ish 2 hours each. So we literally sat for 8 hours straight watching Twilight. But I gotta say, I got into it, which is why I want to talk about it right now, because I was not sure how I was going to feel about it. I thought, this is like super old. I've heard very mixed things about it. People have very different opinions, but I'm invested. I love it. I want to watch it again. I am a Twilight stan now. I also, like everyone though, do have a lot of opinions about it, which is what I kind of want to share. And I also want to share my review, because I feel like it is obviously targeted towards like teens, I'd say. I think the books, which the movies are based on, written by Stephanie Meyer, are like young adult books, or like teen books, I guess. So I don't think that someone my age who's in like the 20 plus area, let's not talk about it too much, okay, is the target audience. So I thought it'd be fun to share my thoughts, and also just so I can have some space to just rant about Twilight. So the first movie, which is just Twilight, I think. I have all the movies here just so I don't get anything wrong. We're gonna see here. Yeah, so the first movie is just called Twilight. It's the intro movie. It's where we learn who the characters are and what this is gonna be about. Obviously, I've heard some things. So I knew there was a thing of Team Edward and Team Jacob, and I know that her name's Bella. So I wasn't fully lost, obviously. Like, I did exist during the 2000s, so I have heard of these books and these movies. It was such a big thing. But I gotta say, first movie was good. I am fortunate that I do not see the world in a lot of frames. My FPS, as people say, is low. So my friend reacted heavily to the fact that there was this like weird blue filter, and you can see it, and obviously I saw it too, but I honestly didn't care that much about it. But in the first movie, they have this weird blue lens filter thing, so everything looks a little bit like spooky, I think is the point, which is kind of weird. My friend also had opinions about the acting, but honestly, I thought it was kind of a vibe. It like fit the aesthetic. Everyone complains that Kristen Stewart and everyone, Robert Pattinson and all of the people in the Twilight series, who are like great actors, who in other stuff everyone likes, but everyone says the acting's horrible. But I think that was a directorial choice, because they're all kind of awkward and weird, but I think it works for the movie. So, slightly weird. Bella, I'm gonna explain. I know that all of y'all know, so you don't really need this. Bella's an awkward, nervous teenager who moves to Fort Washington and falls in love with Edward, who is a vampire. I will say, I understand what people mean. One of my biggest things about this movie is how, like, no shade to Kristen Stewart or to the character Bella Swan, as her name is, but like the fact that this girl just randomly shows up in town and all of a sudden every person is like obsessed with her. Like all of the guys are trying to ask her out. Edward has literally been alive for over 100 years and he's acting like he's never seen a girl before her. I found that very interesting that everyone was like so obsessed with her. I get that that's like the point of the character, but it's very interesting how, like, I guess that Forks is supposed to be like not a big town, but the fact that just one girl moves and everyone's like, oh my god, who is this baddie? Who's like just sitting in a corner, like being shy and awkward like most teenagers. So I don't really get it. But maybe that's what it was like when a new kid came to school. I don't really remember. But the thing that I found the most shocking, I didn't care that much about the glue soap. I didn't care much about the bad acting, and like the fact that Bella was like everyone was obsessed with her was a little odd, but I get it, she's supposed to be the main character and like that's what the whole story is about basically. But the thing that I was most shocked by, which I feel like no one around me ever told me, and I hope that this is okay to say on YouTube, but like, why has no one told me that the Twilight movies are so horny? Like, this was softcore porn for teenage girls. I don't know if I could even say softcore. This was just porn for teenage girls. Like, Edward was, like, if you've read like YA romance or if you've read fan fiction or anything like that, like your girl definitely has done and probably still does. Let's not talk about that now. Like his character and like the way he spoke to her and about what he wanted and the like, but I don't want you to live the life that I live and I want you to have a soul and yada yada. Like Tumblr, Wattpad, core, and also the fact that she just wanted to sleep with him and he didn't want to, but he wanted to, but he just couldn't hold himself back and like all that stuff. So horny. Like I feel like literally just horny. Like all she wanted to do was sleep with him, and he's trying to be nice because he doesn't want her to be a vampire and he doesn't want to lose control and all of this stuff. And it's just like because I feel like that's a common storyline, this idea of like a guy who really likes his girl, but he's like worried he can't hold back and he's not good enough for her and all that stuff, and all she wants to do is like jump him, which I found very interesting because I was not prepared for that. I thought this would just be like a romance story, just like traditional, because something that the H3 podcast crew reacted to, which I didn't know anything about, is apparently that Stephanie Meyer is Mormon, I think. She's at least religious, so they picked up on a lot of religious themes. Like there's a lot of talk about souls and life and like all that type of stuff. And I don't think if they hadn't said it, I'd pick up on it, but because they said that, I realized that there was a lot of like, but I want you to have your soul and yada yada. But the first movie was good, way hornier than I thought it was gonna be, but you know, that is what it is. The only thing I shared this part clip from the movie because I was so shook. I don't know if this was like a thing back in the day, but I just wasn't like I didn't know that. But there's a moment when she sees his room and he has this like huge music collection, and she asks what he's listening to, and he's like, it's Debussy. We lost it. What do you mean it's Debussy? And maybe that's just 2020's core, so like maybe it wasn't funny back then, but we died. It was so ridiculous, so weird hearing someone say that in like a movie, also being serious, like, oh yes, this is Debussy, you know, that famous artist from before. I was like, what? The first movie was good. Honestly, it was a while ago. But I feel like it's the build-up movie. Obviously, it's the first out of 5. You just get to know these characters. Also, I think we all feel this way. It never happens in any of the movies, but I damn sure hope in the books it happened that this girl at some point apologized to her dad, because she put this man through it. Like, she really said, I'm going to be a teenager and I'm going to test your limits. So shout out Charlie for being a great dad, and I hope Bella apologized. The second movie, which I'm going to see, I think is Twilight New Moon. Double checking. Yes, the Twilight Saga New Moon. Sorry. Have to be exact about it. I would say, like, this might be mean to people who are Team Jacob. Also, I want to say, the fact that Team Jacob ever was a thing is beyond my mind. I think that is point 1 of movie 2. Jacob, he should never have had a team. He is not nice to Bella. He is mean. He assaults her. Like, he forces himself on her even though she doesn't want it. There's just so much with him where it's like, how is anyone ever Team Jacob? I might have skipped ahead by that. I think he maybe kisses her against her will. Is that in the next movie? It might be in the next movie. I'm kind of mixing them up. But either way, he's just like always mean. He says that she's lying about his feelings or her feelings about him. And it's like, you can't decide that you know what she's feeling. Like, that's not how that works. He's like, it's giving very nice guy. Like, he's like, but you know I'm so much better for you, and why do you like him? And it's like, because you're mean, and you yell at her, and you tell her she's wrong all the time, and that she's just not admitting her feelings. Or how about you just face the fact, buddy, that she doesn't love you that way in the way that she loves Edward. But most of this part of this movie is Bella's, like, depression moment. Very sad because Edward leaves, which is so sad and so annoying. We love the story arc of he thinks he's not good enough, so he makes it difficult, but him actually leaving and lying to her. Also, the fact that she didn't understand he was lying. I guess if you were a teenager in love, maybe you wouldn't get it, but as a viewer, you're just like, girl, come on. Like, fight for him. He wants you to. But yeah, kind of annoying. But I'd say, honestly, for the main storyline, except this, like, she's depressed about him leaving, and that's how they figure out that they really can't be without each other, it's, like, not really an important movie for, like, the main storyline. It's very werewolf core. So for some reason I cannot comprehend, you are Team Jacob, or you're just really into the werewolf pack of the Twilight series, this would be a movie you'd enjoy. But storyline wise, it felt like it didn't really have that much of a purpose. So I would definitely say that the second movie is the most boring movie, because it didn't really, like, add that much, honestly. So yeah, that was basically when Jacob becomes a werewolf and we learn about the Quillets. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And, like, the pack and, like, all of that stuff. So that was interesting, but I will say it was boring. But I did, of course, love the moment when she's running and she saves Edward when he thinks that she's passed away and he can't live without her. Very cutesy, we love to see it. Also, the fact that the Volturi just literally takes tour groups of tourists and just eats them all. Very interesting that they're not allowed to eat people because they don't want people to know, or people aren't allowed to know that they eat people, but you're just taking full tourist groups and eating them and no one notices. I feel like if I went to Italy and I never came back, I think my family would want to know why. Just saying. But, you know, can't think of it all when making movies. So that's what happens in the second one, or that's, like, the main stuff. Maybe I want a little bit more sauce, honestly. What do we think? No, that works. No, a little more. But then The third movie is, let's see, so I'm not wrong, Eclipse. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, right, and it's the thing about Victoria and their drama. Oh, right, and this is when, what I liked about the third one is when you haven't read the books, you don't really know that much going into it. So I think the third one is when you get to learn a little bit about the other characters. We get to learn Rosalie's background, and we get to learn Jasper's background and stuff like that, which I thought was very interesting. So I like that part of it. I'm trying to remember what else happens. There's just a lot of vampire drama. Again, if you picked up on that, there's a lot of like religious things again, where it's like about their marriage and the fact that Edward has to marry her before she becomes a vampire, and she wants to sleep with him, but he won't sleep with her unless they've gotten married, because he's from like, when did they say he died? Like 1908 or something like that? 1905? So we learned that he's like a traditionalist. We also, I wonder if this is the movie we also learned about his backstory and how he became a vampire and what happened. So that was very interesting. I like that. And again, Edward, this is, no, not Edward. I'm just like, oh, so heated about Jacob. Because this is, I think, when Jacob becomes like a full, like, psycho. And you're just like, what is wrong with you? Let the girl like who she wants and stop being so annoying. Truly. Like, I don't know what's his issue is. But the other characters are very fun. And it's still super horny. Because she wants to sleep with him and he won't sleep with her. And yada yada. That is basically, it's a continuation. The second movie is like a break. It's a let's learn about the werewolves, and Edward's gonna throw a hissy fit about the fact that he's a vampire and he doesn't think that he can give Bella the life that he wants to give her. And again, also the fact that he also doesn't accept her feelings. Like, I get it a little bit more than Jacob, because committing to forever is maybe a bit more of a big deal, but it's still like, and these two just listen to her. And that is a theme that I feel like continues throughout the last two movies as well. They just constantly like want to tell her what's right and what's wrong, and no one really respects how she's feeling. So Jacob is a douche, the third movie. I think Edward and Bella finally come to some sort of consensus. She doesn't really want to marry him at first because she doesn't really seem to believe in that because her parents are separated and all of that stuff. But eventually they come to a consensus. We move on to the big movies, the fourth and the fifth, Twilight, Breaking Dawn, Part 1 and Part 2, which are great. I like both of them. Again, I think, maybe the last movie is the best. I'm not sure, but I feel like that's the movie with the most action. But the second movie, I think, is probably the worst. I'm sorry. But I'm just going to say final thoughts on the fourth and the fifth, because I don't really remember exactly what happened in which. Because then it's about the Volturi, and that they're coming for Bella, and the fact that Jacob is consistently a douchebag. The worst part, I realized, I told my friend in the fourth and the fifth movie, is that you realize that Jacob and Edward are constantly on the same team, but Jacob is being such a douchebag to everyone because he wants to be right, he wants Bella, he wants everything his way. But if he'd ever listened to Edward, he'd realize that they are on the exact same page constantly. Like, neither of them want Bella to be a vampire. Neither of them want her to be with Edward. Neither of them, like, they both want to protect her. It's all the same goddamn things, yet Jacob continues to pick a fight with him. Like, so goddamn annoying. I'm sorry. The only salvageable part was Jacob did have some moments, I will give him credit, where he was a very good friend, but then he'd come all of a sudden and just, you don't want this, you should want to be with me, why won't you admit this, I know I'm right and you're wrong, you don't know your own feelings. Boo. Did not like that part of it. Then they finally get married, super cute Pinterest wedding, we all loved it, very, very pretty. Also, Seth, which is one of the werewolves, such a sweetie pie, so cute. Also, I want to sidetrack right now. I know I'm all over the place. I just have so many thoughts and feelings about this. But the fact with imprinting, which is a werewolf thing, where you have this like moment where someone is basically your soulmate, but it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be in any way. It's just someone, it could be like a friend or a sibling or something. It's just a person that the werewolf will then want to have around their entire life and someone they'll be protective of and take care of and stuff like that. The fact that it is possible to be in a relationship with someone and then imprint on someone else. So the pack leader, Sam, is together with another girl who's a werewolf, Leah, but he imprints on a girl named Emily. So then he just leaves Leah to be with Emily, and they're super cute, so I'm like not against that. But just imagine the heartbreak of being in a relationship with someone and then just finding out, no, their soulmate is someone else. And in this case, also romantically, so he literally just leaves her for this other girl. I cannot imagine that type of heartbreak. Like, that must have been so horrible to experience. But either way, Seth Clearwater is Leah's little brother, and he's super sweet. And he's Team Bella. He's very nice. But then they have their honeymoon, and Jacob throws a hissy fit about that as well because she wants to sleep with Edward, which he's literally been wanting to do in the 3 previous movies. Like, this girl is so horny for this man, and she's been trying to get him to sleep with her this entire time, and he won't let her. And once again, Jacob wants to think that everything's about him, but Edward feels the same way. He doesn't want to sleep with her either because he's also really nervous about it. But that was one of her ultimatums, so he's gonna do it because he cares about her, unlike Jacob, who just cares about himself. And I say again, the fact, if any of y'all are Team Jacob, I have thoughts, I have feelings, and I'm upset about it. But du står här nu. Och jag som guest to leave for a second, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take. So, they get married, they have the honeymoon, they finally sleep together. The scene was great, but it was a little short, but I get it. It's for teens. Me as an adult, I could have thought, could have given us more of the Disney scene because the build-up was literally 6 hours long, plus some change from the beginning of the 4th movie. So we had been waiting for this. So I could have gone for a longer scene, but you know, it was still a good scene. They broke the entire house. It was a moment. Then comes the real drama, which is the fact that somehow, even though none of them know that this is possible, she ends up pregnant, which I find very interesting. I don't know how long Carlisle, the father vampire, who's the like Cullen dad, has been around. The fact that none of them have ever heard about this is so weird to me. I feel like, how has no one known that this is possible? And they have sex one time and it happens. But you know, so then basically the rest of the movie is following her pregnancy. She becomes besties with Rosalie because Rosalie has expressed her want of wanting to have a baby and a family and not being able to now as a vampire. So she's very protective of Bella and her choice to want to keep the baby, whilst everyone else is kind of like, you're gonna die, you shouldn't. And once again, Edward is with Team Jacob, and he says, can you talk her out of having this baby because I don't want her to die? And Jacob is rude as always, and he's mean to Bella, but she says that she wants it. Yada yada, lots of drama back and forth. They just forget about her dad for a while. I don't know, he like basically thinks she's like dying. and is in Switzerland. But really, she's like literally in the same town as him and having a vampire baby. Very odd. Very scary. Like, she gets very sick during this time and all of that stuff. But then she has a baby. Everything turns out fine. First, we think she dies, but she survives. And then Weirdo ass Jacob imprints on the goddamn baby. So obviously everyone thinks that this is like a pedo moment, because why the hell are you imprinting on like a newborn baby? But he explains that it doesn't have to be like romantic or something like that. It can just be like more of a protector, friend, brother type role. So that's what happens there. And then the baby survives. She ends up surviving. And then the last movie is kind of just like their life with their daughter, Renesmee. Bella freaks out, obviously, when she finds out Jacob imprints on the baby. And I kind of agree with her on that. Totally makes sense that she'd feel that way. But yeah. And then they have this realization that the Volturi is coming because of this child, and like that's illegal apparently. And if you don't know, the Volturi is like this vampire cult that basically runs the vampire world and makes all these rules and decides over people, and they're like super mean and weird. Not a fan of any of the Volturi. They just give like bad vibes. But then they accept Jacob as Renesmee's protector, and they're supposed to have this fight. Alice, who is one of the Cullen siblings who has visions and can see in the future, she shows the Volturi guy. They have this big fight, and I literally was like crushing my friend's hand. I was screaming. I was like panicking. I was like, oh my god, they did this, and they hurt this person, and then this happened to that person. And then it turned out it was all her showing the Volturi leader her vision of what was going to happen if they had this big fight. I literally screamed. I was like, you knew the entire time and you didn't tell me? I was suffering through this and you didn't tell me that it was fake. They don't have this big fight. They have this big resolution, and it ends exactly how you want it to, in a happily ever after. And the final scene of the movie is, one of the things about Bella is that she's what's called a shield, so none of the vampires or people who can like get into her mind and read stuff know nothing. So she ends up showing Edward. He reads minds, but for some reason he can't read hers, which is like the start of their whole connection. And she shows him what her thoughts from when she first saw him and met him and like the beginning of their relationship. And it's super, super cute. So honestly, I say I'm sad that I didn't see it earlier. I think 15-year-old me would have loved it. I would have read all the fan fiction. I would have been obsessed. I would have had Twilight posters in my room. But I'm glad that I got to see it now. I really liked it, and I want to see it again. So I'm going to find someone else who wants to see it with me. And now Instagram is bombarding me with Twilight reels and memes and posts, and I love it. So I am a Twilight stan now, but I definitely say it's way hornier than I thought. It's way more like romance based. Like I realized it was about a relationship and her picking this guy. Everyone's heard of Team Edward, Team Jacob. But it was way more like, one, there shouldn't be a Team Jacob. The fact that that exists, it blows my mind. But it's way hornier and way more like romantic. And also the relationships between other vampires and werewolves and all the people, when you see Emmett and Rosalie and Alice and Jasper and Carlisle, and I can't remember the mom's name. Esme? Yeah, her name is Esme, right? And Bella's mom is Renee. Hence Renesmee. Very interesting name. Like when you see all these relationships, it's very cute. It's very like Tumblr Wattpad core with these like stereotypical like relationship arcs with the guy who thinks he's not good enough, but he's super protective of her and like he wants to keep her safe and he doesn't really want her to be with anyone else, but he can't admit that he should be with her, and you know, all that type of stuff. We love it. It was juicy. It was great. So yeah, I think those are my thoughts that I can remember right now. If I can think of anything else, maybe I'll let y'all know. And we'll make a part 2, more Twilight thoughts. And if y'all have any Twilight thoughts or opinions, please share them in the comments down below. So I made my little cookie thing. I'm gonna put it in the oven, and I'm going to, I'm gonna wish y'all a good day. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I know 20 years too late with the Twilight video, but I'm obsessed now. So please, again, DM me, comment down below, and let's talk about Twilight. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and comment stuff down below and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I'm gonna bake and eat my cookie, and I will see y'all in the next video. Have a good day. Peace.